On Friday, Georgia released the full special grand jury report that led to the criminal indictment of former President Donald Trump and 18 others for trying to overturn Trump's loss in the state. Now, while 19 were indicted, we find out that the grand jury had actually recommended even more people be charged. Now, the special grand jury does not issue indictments. Only the AG's office is able to do that. And ultimately, AG Fani Willis, again, indicted 19 people. So that's a lot on these RICO charges. So now, some of the people that were not actually indicted, even though the special grand jury had recommended it, were, well, a lot of people, including two former senators, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, and a current sitting senator, wait for it, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Interesting. Now, there were also others, former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, Trump advisor and lawyer Boris Epshteyn, and campaign lawyer Cleta Mitchell. So that's just among the people that, again, were recommended. Wow. So now, look, you might say, well, wow, that's a lot of people at the grand jury. They must obviously be stacked against MAGA and against conservatives, against right-wing. Oh, yes. Well, hold on there. There's a footnote in the report that says that at least one juror voted against recommending indictments against Perdue and Loeffler on this racketeering conspiracy charge because they believe that the then senator's statements following the November 2020 election, while pandering to their political base, did not give rise to their being guilty of a criminal conspiracy. So, again, I think that speaks a little bit to more of like, okay, look, we're just really trying to focus on the facts here. And yeah, Loeffler and Perdue, yeah, of course they were pandering. Politicians do that all the time. But that's not enough to do criminal conspiracy. Interesting, right? I think that shows, like I said, the neutrality of these people that are in the grand jury and how they did stick to factual information. So now, that said, while it was less clear on those two, or clear, again, that they didn't rise to the level of criminal conspiracy, on the others, pretty unanimous. Now, when it came to Lindsey Graham, however, he called Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger after the November 2020 election and calls that Raffensperger basically described as uncomfortable. Ooh, I don't like this. This is not good. Now, the call, again, made him very uncomfortable because what Lindsey Graham was asking for is to bring in private credit card companies. Yes, to get involved in an audit. Why? Well, again, he was throwing in all sorts of ideas here, and it all comes down to Georgia's signature matching process. So they do signature matching on their ballots. To make, your signature doesn't match up. Reject, 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 reject. And look, I'm not a fan of signature matching because I know people's signatures change throughout their lives. I think it's a really, really poor metric in order to judge whether or not a person is actually that person. Again, voter fraud is so extremely rare. And the fact that, again, people's signatures change. Maybe they get injured in their hand or develop arthritis. Their signature changes. All these different things happen as you grow up, as you grow older, that change your signature. It's just a terrible metric, okay? That said, here's what Raffensperger told the January 6th committee in a November 30th, 2021 interview. He said that Graham mentioned about credit card companies. He says, they get millions of signatures every day, and they run that through their machines. Okay, saying that, well, I mean, they get the signature, so they can do the signature matching. Again, super weird getting these private credit card companies involved in this. Now, during the call with Graham, Raffensperger said that there hadn't been an outright ask to find additional votes like Trump requested in January of 2021, but did say, yeah, this conversation, yes, it made me uncomfortable and seemed a little ominous. Quote, he was talking about a process of using companies and I didn't know exactly where he was going. I just didn't want to go where he was, where I thought he might go. I just thought it best not to call him back. So that actually gets into a funnier story about how Brad Raffensperger basically just ghosted Lindsey Graham, which is hilarious. He said, quote, "And I told him, we finished the call, and I said, well, let me talk to our general counsel, who wasn't on the call, and we'll get back to you." And we just never got back to him. Oh, yeah, no, well, yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll talk it, bring it to our general counsel, and, we'll get back to you sometime later on. Is he gone? Oh, thank God. That guy was weird. Super, super odd stuff coming from him. Oh, my God. Hilarious. Hilarious. Let's just ghost Lindsey Graham. You know what? Let's all ghost Lindsey Graham. He's not a serious person. He's a clown. But look, at the end of the day, he was trying to help Trump overturn the results by putting pressure on Raffensperger, on state officials. That said, the reason that he ultimately was not indicted by Fani Willis is because he wasn't quite dumb enough to use the threats or to ask Raffensperger to find him votes that he didn't earn like Trump did. Instead, what he was doing is trying to find alternatives that would actually not be illegal. So in this case, using a different signature matching process in the hopes that it will allow the state to throw out enough votes for Donald Trump to win. So now, again, I talked about the problems with signature matching, and what it comes down to essentially is a form of voter suppression. Okay? So what Lindsey Graham was hoping to do was, let's see if there's enough voter suppression that we can do. Enough signatures that maybe were a little bit off, in order to throw all these ballots out so that Trump could win. Just, let's do that. Let's go with the credit card companies. We'll see if their signatures don't quite match up exactly to the ones that are on the ballots, and see what happens. Let's see what happens. So, look, voter suppression is something that is tried and true with Republicans, and unfortunately isn't illegal in the ways that Republicans have figured out how to do it. So that's why Willis did not actually go through with the grand jury's recommendation, even though I understand why they made that recommendation, because it was part of that pressure campaign. But when you look at it individually, it actually is nothing different than Republicans, than what Republicans have traditionally done to try to do voter suppression. And so for her, it was like, not exactly a strong enough case, because they always do this kind of stuff anyway. So I don't think it rose to the level of criminality. At least that's what I believe Willis was thinking. So look, ultimately, that might actually end up being smart, not going after Lindsey Graham, which, again, is a strange thing for me to actually say. But when you look at it, you could potentially create an issue if you cast the net a little too wide. And as far as Willis is concerned, I believe that she knows exactly what she's doing and is incredibly strong and confident in the case that she has made against Trump and the other 18 people that have been indicted.